With COVID-19, the world's hospitals are facing a disease that, until a few months ago, nobody had ever seen before. So far, there's no proven effective treatment.
We have to make the best possible use of all the medicines that we have.
Developing an entirely new drug can often take a decade or more. So our only option right now is to see if a drug we already have might help patients.
Several existing medicines for other conditions are undergoing trials.
When faced with a new virus, it's understandable there's enormous interest in whether drugs developed for other diseases might be a treatment or even a cure.
Professor Peter Horby is running the world's largest clinical trial of its kind to test whether existing drugs might be effective against coronavirus. Peter previously trialled drugs in the fast-moving Ebola outbreak in West Africa. Just like today's pandemic, that involved a virus that causes an acute infection.
These very short-lived severe viral infections are extremely difficult to treat because you've got a very short window. You have to have a very powerful antiviral drug then to stop the virus replicating.
More than 10,000 patients are taking part in the NHS COVID-19 trial. They're selected at random to get one of the drugs in the trial or standard treatment.
You've seen a lot of reports of we gave this drug to 5 people, 10 people, 50 people and they got better. But if you gave the same number of people a cup of tea, most of them would get better anyway, and it's not the tea that's doing it, so you need a control group.
One of the antiviral drugs in the trial was developed for HIV.
Lopinavir, ritonavir, a drug that I use to treat HIV, why are we using it here?
In the laboratory it works against coronaviruses as well. It inhibits one of the proteins that's needed for the replication of the virus, and so it should stop virus replication, or that's the theory anyway.
Another drug in the trial is a malaria treatment that had high-level support early in the crisis.
Hydroxychloroquine. I hope it's going to be a very important answer.
Is hydroxychloroquine in the trial because President Trump said to put it there, or is there actually some data that it may be efficacious?
We're not going to put anything in a trial because a politician thinks it's a good choice. In the laboratory, it does work quite well against a whole range of viruses, but whenever it's been tested in humans against those viruses, it's failed.
Some researchers have suggested hydroxychloroquine may prevent coronavirus particles entering our cells.
So, it's a drug that we should try because it's available, it's safe, but we shouldn't be overly optimistic about the effects.
There's also been excitement about a drug called remdesivir.
Remdesivir seems to have reduced the average length of time that people have symptoms from 15 to 11 days.
Remdesivir was developed for hepatitis C, and it was tried against Ebola. Clinical trials run by its maker showed it reduces recovery time in COVID-19 patients, perhaps by disrupting an enzyme that the virus uses to replicate. These results haven't been independently verified, but the FDA in America has authorized the emergency use of the drug to treat COVID-19. In the NHS trial, every 2 weeks the data is assessed by an independent committee. They're looking to see whether the treatments reduce deaths or time spent in intensive care.
So I'm not peeking at the data because I'm not allowed to.
So you, as the principal investigator, you actually don't know what's happening in your own trial?
Yes, and it's difficult because you really want to know, but it also protects us from making a statistical mistake in our eagerness to see a benefit.
Peter's trial is one of nearly 1,000 taking place in 64 different countries. There will be dead ends, but if just one drug reduces the death rate by even a modest amount, it would make a difference.
Because so many people are infected with this virus, even a small effect of any of these drugs will translate to a massive saving of human life.
Yeah, that's right. With hundreds of thousands of deaths probably globally, then even a small reduction in that will be a lot of people's lives saved.
Most successful treatments come from a deep understanding of what a disease actually does to the body. And with COVID-19, we're only just beginning to get a glimpse of what's going on. We know that this is a disease that affects the respiratory tract and the lungs, and the most effective treatment for severe cases is still ventilation to support those lungs. But there's also growing evidence that this is a virus that can attack many, many more parts of the body. Dr. Nikki Longley is an infectious diseases consultant and is one of the leaders of a study looking at this very issue. Nikki, we know that COVID-19 affects the lungs, but is there evidence it can do more than that?
Absolutely. I think there's growing evidence that this is a multi-system disease. So we've been working together closely with the neurologists and rheumatologists, with the kidney doctors, with the intensive care doctors, with the cardiologists, to try and get a better understanding of exactly how this disease is affecting all the different organs in the body.
And does it only affect organs throughout the body in those patients who have really severe COVID?
I think it's really important to highlight that with this virus, still about 80% of people have really mild disease, and some people have almost no symptoms at all.
Can we drill into each of those body systems a little more deeply? This is a brain scan from a female patient with COVID. Can you tell me about what we're seeing here and about the effects on the brain more generally?
On this scan, where the arrows are pointing, you can see some white areas which show areas of bleeding and areas of inflammation around that. Although it's quite early to say that this isn't absolutely caused by COVID. We're also seeing diffuse swelling of the brain, or an encephalitis, and people will often then present with profound exhaustion, being much more drowsy, and having hallucinations and confusion. And what we're trying to get a better understanding of is an increased number of strokes in young people as well as older people, and that may be to do with inflammation and problems with the lining of the blood vessels.
What about the effects on the heart? This is the scan. It's a dynamic, moving MRI scan from a paper published a few weeks ago. It's a male patient in their 50s with COVID.
So what you're seeing here is diffuse swelling and inflammation of the whole of the heart and the heart muscle, and the fact that it's not contracting as well as you would normally expect. So it's not pushing as much blood around the circulation, around the body, as you would see in the heart of someone who wasn't affected.
Are there other effects on the heart as well?
Definitely. So we're often seeing people who might notice that their pulse is racing very fast. You'll see otherwise young, fit, healthy people, but every time they stand up and move, they find their heart is racing away much more than it would ordinarily have done.
A lot of people may have seen pictures in the media of so-called COVID toe. What's going on? Why is there a rash on these toes?
So the jury is still slightly out there, and people don't fully understand what's going on. But I think lots of people have heard that this virus will attach to or have an affinity to this ACE2 receptor that you find on the lining of the lungs and in the upper respiratory tract. But that receptor is also present in many other organs in the body, so it's present in the gut and in the kidneys, but also in the lining of the blood vessels. And increasingly there's evidence that the lining of the blood vessels get inflamed with the COVID and produce symptoms such as this toe, where you might get swelling and bleeding around the blood vessels themselves. And in the minor way, you might have a painful, itchy toe that goes away on its own. But it also may cause a more widespread inflammatory type syndrome throughout other blood vessels and other organs in the body. In most people, this would be a minor event.
Nikki, thanks very much indeed.